Bon dia a tothom. Buenos días, good morning. Jo els hi faré la presentació en anglès. Per tant, els traductors i els que no tenen l'anglès que el vagin preparant, els assistents. Abans que res, benvinguts a Barcelona i a l'àrea metropolitana de Barcelona. Tots els que participeu en aquest congrés PostHabitat. So now, as I said, I'm going to switch over to English. Thanks for coming. You're most welcome. You're most welcome to the city of Barcelona, and you're most welcome to the Metropolitan or Greater Barcelona, a city of almost 4 million inhabitants, and a city which looks to have its say in the world, and that's why we're organizing this Congress. That's why we invited you. That's why we thank you in advance for your contribution. Let me speak first about a film, about a movie which is a classic movie. It was done by Charles Chaplin quite a few decades ago, and it's called City Lights. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a film which talks about city. It's centered in a city, and it depicts some of the problems and social encounters which take place in a city. As you know, there's a tramp, of course, the tramp, Charles Chaplin, and then you have the blind flower seller, the girl, and they fall deeply in love. Now, what Chaplin does in the film is befriend a multi-millionaire, and as this millionaire usually gets drunk quite often, he manages to get a donation from him in money, and with his money he saves the girl's life, because the girl is about to be evicted, kicked out of her home, and with the resources that the tramp, Charles Chaplin, gets from his millionaire friend, he saves the girl and he saves her from being thrown out of her own home. Finally, the blind girl recognizes the donor by touching his palm, the palm of his hand, and that's how the story ends, with a scene, a very moving scene of social compassion. But down deep, what the message, which is a very progressive message conveyed by City Lights, is that what can save a city is social compassion, what we would nowadays call social cohesion. That's the basis for any successful city and for living together in a city. Now, that has stayed to our days. It's still true. So the message behind City Lights is also the message behind Habitat. And it's also the message behind the meeting which we are holding here and which is starting right now in Barcelona. Social distribution is probably the greatest key to success in society, but specifically in a city. That's why the metropolitan area of Barcelona, as many others, took it as a challenge to impose distribution as one of its main determining factors. As you know, the wealthiest areas and towns, municipalities of the metropolitan area contribute more to the metropolitan area government and administration, and those which are less wealthy don't contribute as much. That is also key to success. That's why those municipalities with less resources are interested in a metropolitan area. That's also why a city like Barcelona, which is the central city with almost half of the population, is also interested, because giving resources allows it to play a leading role in the metropolitan area. So that's an idea which is behind the metropolitan area of Barcelona in this case, but which is also the moving force of so many big cities which organize their metropolitan areas nowadays, and which are doing it increasingly so. In Habitat 3, the new urban agenda, which was approved in Quito, highlighted this priority of social cohesion and social redistribution. And it also highlighted another aspect about which Salvador Rueda, speaking next, has written a lot, which is sustainability and the way to make cities more efficient. That also comes out in a way in the film, in the Chaplin movie, when you see all the traffic, when you see all the noise, when you see all the waste which is being generated by a modern city and which is always present. It's always there, the inefficiency of cities which produces so much waste. So let me also thank all those, apart from all of you present here, who've come from the 5 continents. Let me also thank the networks of cities which have made this meeting possible and which are also behind this effort. Let me give thanks, first of all, to the Metropolitan area, the organizer, and all the staff, all the people which have been working hard during 2 years to reach this point. Let me also thank our partners, the Metropolis network of metropolitan areas and cities in the world, the Alice network, the Met Cities, a network of Mediterranean cities, the CIDOP, research and think tank based in this city as well, eBay, another think tank also, Casa America, and all those experts and all those guests which have been so kind as to share with us this moment. Now, cities are important, and that's why these networks are essential. And to get together every now and then and highlight the urban agenda approved in Quito, but all those problems derived and connected to this new urban agenda, and how to translate them into very practical solutions in each of our cases, which is a world by itself. Every city, of course, is a world by itself. But we have to think globally and then act locally, obviously. So that's why it's good to have these meetings, it's good to share experiences, and it's good to think that cities must have a bigger say in the world. I'm sure you know this author called Benjamin Barber, who left us some time ago, but wrote this book called If Mayors Ruled the World. Benjamin Barber highlighted the role of cities in the world. He spoke about many of these networks I have mentioned, which are present today here. And he concluded by saying, cities have to rule the city. Why? And he said, there's a very good reason why. Because states and nation states have tried to do it and they have not succeeded. Nation states have not been able to rule the world, or at least to do it peacefully. And the reason behind that, or what Benjamin Barber exposes and sustains, is that states have not been able to do it because they are based on confrontation. And they are based on fierce competition. Whereas cities are rather based on cooperation and on building networks. The evidence of that is that we have so many city networks which work easily with no conflict whatsoever. So, well, I don't know if we should have an assembly of cities which should be ruling the world nowadays. I don't know. I don't know if we would ever be able to translate into practical terms what Benjamin Barber was sustaining. But what I do know, and we're struggling for that, is that cities must help to rule the world. Cities and metropolitan areas specifically have to be there. They have to be listened to. They have to take part and share the burden of ruling and running the world. And that's obvious because of the reasons that Ben Barber mentioned, but also because increasingly urban areas concentrate more population, more activity, concentrate talent and intelligence. And that's the other point to which I would like to mention and which is so relevant. As you know, the main actors of Jeremy Rifkin's third revolution, the third revolution which we are living through according to Rifkin. The main factors would be, on the one side, the effort for sustainability derived from a post-carbon age, an age which strives to work without all those fossil fuels, which strives to generate less waste, which tries to be more efficient. And at the same time, the city and the world which tries to achieve an organization based on what he calls lateral power. Horizontal instead of vertical. Vertical power, which is hierarchical, which is based on authority, which is based on enforcement and coercion. Lateral power, which is based on sharing, which is based on empowerment of citizens and of people. Now, an example he gives of this empowerment and this lateral power is Wikipedia. Wikipedia, which is no doubt quite an outstanding example of how citizens, people, can more or less spontaneously organize to generate very important processes which determine how the world looks like, and which determine thought and knowledge, which is behind any sort of power. So those two aspects relate again to what we were talking about at the beginning when we talked about the film of City Lights by Charles Chaplin. And it also relates and goes back to the main actors and the main factors outlined in Habitat 3 in Quito. Sustainability, efficiency, and social redistribution, which is, let's face it, redistribution of resources and of power. It's linked. So how can we do that? How can we proceed to this third revolution? How can we change the world? And especially talking about cities and metropolitan areas. How can we change ourselves? How can we contribute to change the world? Probably there the answer can be summarized in one single word. And this single word is intelligence. Intelligence which comprises knowledge, which comprises capacity of synthesizing problems and issues, and which also comprises the capability of reaching new, innovating solutions. All that is what we understand by intelligence, and cities have to be intelligent. If they want to achieve all the challenges, and want to overcome all the challenges of the 21st century, cities must be intelligent. And what is an intelligent city? As McLuhan said, an intelligent city is not a city that has a lot of new technologies. An intelligent city is a city which has intelligent citizens. So then again we go into lateral power, into sharing knowledge, into everything which Rifkin was also saying. You probably are familiar with another, not film, but originally was a book written by Isaac Asimov, which is called The Foundation. In The Foundation, you have a city, Trenton, which fills up the whole planet. It's not a city-state like it would be in the Greek times of the Greek polis. It's a planet state, a planet city, sorry. A planetary city. Now this huge city, which covers a whole planet, is driven by one force. And according to his own wording, that one force is knowledge. So those who are running the city are those who control the production and the storing of intelligence. Incidentally, the movement which takes care of this is based on an encyclopedism and on anticipation. And they call themselves the movement of the mayors. And it's not a coincidence. Asimov is telling us that in the future, in planetary terms, the solution comes through knowledge, science, intelligence. And the driving people behind this have to be those which organize local communities, however big they are. Metropolitan areas, huge metropolitan areas, connected into a whole planet in his case. Who goes against them? The shareholders. The movement of the shareholders, the companies. Somebody who's seeking competition instead of cooperation. People who are talking about accumulation, not about sharing. So well, that's also the basis of Asimov as a writer, progressive man who thinks of the world, who tries to think of the future in very positive terms. Now, if the clue is intelligence, and that's the way to prevent waste in huge quantities, and to make cities and the world at large, to make it much more efficient. If the clue is intelligence, and if the city has to be dealt with as a center of redistribution and social empowerment, if all that has to happen, somebody has to put the intelligence, somebody has to put the talent. Are these city planners? Yes. We're talking about city planners. In a way, the mayors, the movement of the mayors in Isaac Asimov, or nowadays mayors, or the presidents of metropolitan areas, are people who try to anticipate and who try to invest knowledge and intelligence into their cities. So that is the clue. We need the agents, but some of the agents cannot be administrators. We need administrators, and we need politicians, believe it or not, like it or not, we need them. But we also need people who are experts and who plan in a neutral fashion, who are not involved in the day-to-day running of the city, who are not those responsible of power sharing, of this distribution of lateral power, which we were talking about, but who are purely involved in thinking, in the thought around cities, around efficiency, around generating not so much waste, around redistribution in big cities. Now, who are these people? You. That's why we thought about inviting you to an international congress to see how different people from different cities in the world think about the cities, which ideas they have, how we can share those ideas. And we thought that probably one of the best persons to speak to us in this opening day, in this opening session, would be one of these prominent, most prominent experts, which have thought about cities, which have thought about intelligence, which have thought about the redistribution of powers in a city, and who's been thinking about that his whole life. We have that person here. He's been basically concerned with thinking about the city as an ecosystem, a human ecosystem. And if we might think that natural ecosystems can balance itself, are self-sufficient, we can only think that a city can balance itself and can be self-sufficient if we put the cultural factor into this evolution we want in cities. We are now living through cultural evolution rather than natural evolution. So what we have to invest into cities is culture, is knowledge, is intelligence. Now that person I would like to introduce to you, and who in a way is defending and is sustaining that we have to put intelligence, lots of intelligence, loads of intelligence into the cities to make them more efficient, to waste a bit less, to distribute things evenly, to achieve social cohesion and balance, and who in a way is speaking about defeating the errors of the Neolithic Revolution. Let me just a brief explanation about that as a historian. The Neolithic Revolution is based on the control of nature by man. The agricultural revolution, the animal breeding revolution. So, probably one of the biggest mistakes of humanity is having overreached, having overdone that control of nature, over-exploiting nature in a very inefficient manner. So we have to overcome our own inefficiency, generated by man exploiting nature and over-exploiting the environment. So trying to find a solution there and trying to find this stable, efficient ecosystem has been the priority of somebody we have right here in the room. He's sitting right next to me. He's called Salvador Rueda, and please, I would like to welcome him with a big round of applause because he will tell us extremely interesting things. Thank you.